Do we have a question? Okay. I'm going to give maybe Tony the microphone here, or maybe Tony has it. Tony, you're awesome. Okay.
So what do you do if you mess up somehow and the top behavior you end up with is like in that emotional response category and giving my way to de-escalate?
I mean, to be clear, if you get to a point where there's emotional responding in this process, then I usually recommend you go back to the previous step where there was no problem behavior, change the response topography of the communication or toleration or what have you, and then go move on. I'm a big fan of stepping back. I'm not a big fan of working through it. This should be more of an errorless process than not. There's very rarely a true errorless process. There'll be a little problem behavior. When you get problem behavior in this process, it should be minor. If you are getting major behavior, especially the point that it's going to the emotional borderlands, the child's teaching you something, and I want you to listen and go back. And sometimes that means going right back to the analysis, teaching them their behavior as power so they don't escalate, and then starting over. And using the same non-negotiables. A novel response means now we're going to pick a new FCR, and we're going to restart. I would probably also change the room I'm in. I'd keep the person. Logistically, that makes sense, but I often will change, or I'll stay in the same room, and we'll switch it, and we'll move everything into the other area. We're just trying to change it up, okay, to break any stimulus control over that behavior. I'd have to talk with you more to figure out like why that may have happened. That's what I would ask you to do with your team, is reflect on how it got there. But please know, emotional responding should not be part of this process. Okay, very good. Let's go on to what you might do after simple FCT. For some learners, we go from simple FCT right to tolerance training, but that's rare. We usually do other things. An example is we go from simple FCT to complex FCT. Complex FCT often has these elements. We teach the child to obtain a listener by saying, "Excuse me," or waving their hand a little bit, or giving a tap on the shoulder. We teach people to get a listener before they mand. And this is not as easy as it may sound, so you're looking for tap, wait to be acknowledged. Yes, yes, buddy. Yes, Mary. And then my way. Okay, so what we're working on here is a social interaction. Sometimes what we do is we put in what SLPs call a carrier phrase. May I have blank, please? And what do we put in it? May I have my way, please? May I have more time, please? Whatever the simple FCR gets tucked into the frame. You verbal behavior folks would call this an autoclitic frame. If you read some of our early articles, we mistakenly called it a manned frame. But nevertheless, you know what we're talking about. Put it in a frame. The frames have generativity. That's why we like them. If you teach the frame, may I have blank, please, kids tuck things in it, and you might get new language that you didn't teach. Sometimes we put in a social nicety, may I have my way, please. And then we shape. We work on tone, articulation. We work a lot of times on sass. May I have my way, please. Lighten it up. We work a lot of times on speed. A lot of kids just want to get right back to that iPad. So, may I have my way, please? May I have my way, please? Try that. And so this is a time for shaping. In complex FCR, we're shaping. What do we shape? These are options. Let me give you an example of a boy that we just chose one of these. Our own Shannon Ward worked with this boy several years ago. What you're going to notice in this video, he uses gestures. This is his my way, pointing to his chest. What you're going to notice is that he points to his chest kind of while he's looking around, not at Shannon particularly. Shannon purposely turns her back to him because at the second stage of FCT, she wants him to obtain her attention before manding. I'm going to use the word, folks. We want the response to be intentional. It should be super intentional. If the response doesn't look intentional, I worry about it. This is a good example of shaping intentionality.
Okay, sir, it's time to get down and do a little work together. We gotta go to the table and work on some stuff.
So again, the first response to nobody, that didn't work, so that induces the response she taught him on previous trials was to find her, tap her, get her to acknowledge you, and then engage in the simple mand. Okay. Some children have good language. Here's an example of the complex FCR before we worked with the child to engage in specific mands. I know that a lot of people don't like it when kids with good language are saying, "May I have my way, please?" Fully respect that. Please know it's not an or. It's not, well, I'll teach "may I have my way," or I'll teach the child precise mands. It's not an or. It's an and. And there's a sequence. Teach "may I have my way, please," and then differentiate the mand. Here's an example. Sorry, the volume is really low on this one.
All right, excuse me. What's up? Oh, yeah.
So that's complex. Excuse me, what's up? "May I have my way, please?" Of course. You're just continuing to play. Then what Christy did was she would say, "May I have my way, please?" She'd say, "Of course. What would you like?" If he didn't respond, she would tuck in the prompt. You can say, ask for a break. You can ask for your stuff. And then through some trials, this is what it looks like.
Okay, kiddo. We've got to get back to our work here. Excuse me. Yes, what's up?
Can I look, please?
Oh, sure. What would you like?
I want to stop working, please.
Okay, we don't have to do this work. Anything else?
I want the iPad and a picture and design.
Oh, sure.
Now that's a funky combo. How would you know that? That's why we teach kids precise mands, so they can get things that are important to them at that moment in time. Now please know in the first video with this boy, you'll notice his toys were everywhere, yes? So when he said, "May I have my way, please?" he could access all of them. But in this stage of the game, they're now constrained, they're now contained, just like they would be in the classroom. And that's when we start working on the specificity of his mand. What we call differentiate the omnibus mand into its components. We don't do this in the beginning because our job in the beginning is to eliminate problem behavior. Once that's eliminated, then we'll work on the language. Sometimes, again, sometimes with learners, if this is going to take 2 months to differentiate the mand, I'm not doing it. What I'm going to do is stick with the "excuse me, may I have my way, please," go right to tolerance training. After the cab chains are built, all the contextually appropriate behavior, then I might circle back. Recommend you circle back and work on language training. I don't think you should spend more than 4 or 5 therapy hours in FCT, at most. It's going to take you more than 5 therapy hours, then choose what your response is going to be, and let's get to toleration training. Let's get to contextually appropriate behavior, which is where they start doing things that are educational, habilitative, etc. Okay, we have a question from, is Emily? Okay. People have changed seats and clothing. How rude. Just kidding. Emily's not on the west side. She's defected, by the way, Central Park. I noticed Central Park has some new inhabitants. Welcome. Gentrification. Emily's right here with the cream sweater. My descriptions of your clothing is always wrong. I understand that. I'm sorry.
Do you usually use a second prompter when you're teaching the attention reading response?
We use a second prompter as needed, and the child will teach us that. I like to have one person in the room because that's cost effective. It's expensive to have 2 people there. Now, if the child already has 2 people with them all day, then sure, let's use them. But generally, I try to avoid that. But if you have the resources to do that, I recommend it, certainly. And we recommend when there's a second prompter that second prompter is always behind the child, out of eyesight, and they can participate in the reinforcement interval, but that the listener, if you will, for the communication response should be singular. So that people learn to engage in it intentionally. We're moving on to the tolerance response, folks. The dad showed up for Brandon's sessions. I loved the tolerance response. He asked Ditu to teach his boy. The boy seemed to really enjoy it. Ditu enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. The mother did not like it. But let's look.
Anything but the crab! Oh! Oh, the crabby. Okay, I'm gonna play with this now.
Give me.
Yeah, Bentley.
Mama, please.
No, not now.
Stop.
Oh my gosh, good job! Oh no, I was gonna get him!
So do you see how that trial is just embedded in a play interaction? Understand the segmented nature of these interactions tends to smooth out as we move forward in the process. You can see that's just they're playing, then Ditu kind of takes over a little bit, the boy engages in the social interaction, they go right back into that play stream that they were in to begin with. The response was this, that's cool. And so mom was struggling with why he was giving an upside down thumb while saying that's cool. She thought that was odd. So we cleaned it up, Ditu had like shape the thumb up. But nevertheless, that's an example of a tolerance response. All we're looking to do is have a simple replacement behavior for the knee-jerk reactions kids have to disappointment. And you notice we don't sugarcoat the disappointment. We say, no, not right now, can't do that, because we want to expose them to that signal and teach them it's not that big of a deal. All you got to do is do this, and we go back to your way, okay? Okay, very good. I want to make a really important point about communication training right now. I'm going to do it some beautiful Italian videos. They're beautiful because of the colors. Look how pretty those are. They're beautiful because of the language. I don't speak Italian very well, if at all, but I love the sound of it. Notice in the first video, simple communication, the child never looks up from their iPad, and that is correct. We do not work on eye contact or body position or anything till we get to CAB 1. CAB 1 is where we're going to start seeing those things. Some kids get through these first two steps of treatment, communication training and tolerance training, and their eyes never left the reinforcer, and that's okay. Don't put that battle there. We're going to work on that later. When we ask them to relinquish their reinforcers, it'll come along for the ride naturally. So, simple FCR, first one, he's going to say something like, my way, modo mio.
Ok, Lori, mettiamo via il tablet. A modo mio.
Modo mio. Now notice the teacher kind of fiddled with his iPad or whatever that device is. We normally don't recommend that, we just stand, but these are videos from a bit ago. The second video is the real important one. Now when a child has learned modo mio like this boy, and they've been practicing it for a bunch of trials, the child stands up, the teacher stands up, puts the EO in, and fully expects the boy's going to say modo mio, but he doesn't. He doesn't say it. What should she do? Sir, what do you got? Is it Jake? What's your Jack? Okay, what do you got?
Written prompt.
Good, I like that. You could prompt and you could use the written prompt. I think that's a good idea. You could use a vocal prompt if that was effective earlier, but you could prompt. And that is the logical thing to do. And I would say half the time you should prompt. But half the time there's an alternative. And the alternative is very important to making sure children do not become prompt dependent in this process. And the solution is called progressing the EO. Just turn up the heat. Remember, we were practicing progressing the EO. That's where the man should live, in the progression of the EO. So if you prompt every time you don't get the response when you saw it last time, they're going to be stuck in a prompt-dependent relationship with you. But you want the response to be from the heart, if you will. So turn up the heat on the EO, and that's what this woman did. Instead of prompting, she just instead had him put the iPad down and transition to the table, and that's when you'll see the man resurge.
Lori, mettiamo a posto, andiamo a lavorare. Vai, seduto, dobbiamo lavorare. Vai, mettiti seduto. A modo mio, ok, vieni.
So again, she was just progressing the EO, not prompting. Really nice. And then I'll end on this behavior analyst right here. Her name is Gaia. She just passed her BCBA, one of the few internationals that'll have the chance to do that. And she's an incredible BCBA, but she's working with this boy. And this is what his response looks like before we go to tolerance training. There's a little "Scusa," there's a little "May I have my way, please?" And he also gets her attention, I believe, with her name on this trial, not a "Scusa."
Dimmi. Certo, Lori, tieni.
How pretty is that? Let's hear that again. John, crank that bad boy up.
Dimmi. Certo, Lori, tieni.
Posso, amore mio. And I don't know what Guy is saying, but it sounds great. Highly reinforcing to me. Okay. So right now, we have steps. We put numbers to the steps in the process. It's basically a 23-step process when we consult with folks. And we've gone through 10 steps so far. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire through a bunch of steps right now, because once we have this foundation built, we have the reinforcer, they're communicating and they're tolerating, now we can start to move, we can start to teach, we can start to get some good behavior. Okay. This list of those steps is available in your treatment packet. I ask that you pull out that treatment packet now. And can someone tell me what page the 23 steps are articulated on? Thank you, Jack. Page 8 has these steps.